What Stoicism originally meant was not to repress your emotions and not feel them, but rather, like the Buddhist ideal, to achieve detachment from the external event. So you feel your emotions, but you're not controlled by them. You're not unduly moved by them. You're not,
Mhm.
uh, you don't become uncentered because of your
Mhm.
passions. But you can feel your emotions, but you can also think clearly and not have your rationality confused. And you also, your values are intact. So the ideal in Stoicism was what we're saying. They use the word citadel. Build an inner citadel
Mhm.
where you know your values, you know your spirit guides, you know your philosophy, you're determined to live by it, and it's impenetrable. So
Yeah.
it's that inviolable inner sanctuary. It's not outside us, it's inside us. And
Yes.
the ideal of Stoicism and of Buddhism and of some other practices is to have that inner sanctuary or inner citadel where we really know ourselves and are fully connected to ourselves and can't be shaken from that sacred position no
Right.
matter what the external world is doing.
I want to welcome you to Caritas Consciousness Project. I'm Gloria Coelho, and Caritas is dedicated to promoting the evolution of consciousness as the key to individual growth and global healing. We draw from a wide assortment of ancient wisdom and leading edge studies in science and consciousness and spirituality. The convergence of science and spirituality is one of our favorite topics, and as well as healing, philosophy. All these things come under the topic of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness. And we also host online presentations featuring guest speakers such as tonight, and offering classes and study groups, which are also on Zoom. You can view, we have over 150 of our guest speaker video recordings on our YouTube channel, which is Caritas Consciousness Project. And you can also view them on our website, which is caritascenter.org. As a nonprofit, we do rely on the support of our members and donors to keep Caritas going. So to support our program, you can make a donation or become a member with benefits on our website. And so let me introduce our guest speaker. Tonight, we're going to take a profound journey into the heart of ancient Greeks and Greek sacred tradition as Edward Tick explores the themes of his newest work, Passage to Poros, in the Sanctuary of the Sea God. And this is the book, and it's wonderful. I finished it Tuesday. I loved it. Ed is an archetypal psychotherapist, author, poet, educator, international journey leader, and peace activist, and well known for his contributions to healing war trauma. He affirms with Hippocrates that all illnesses begin in the soul. To help restore transformational healing at the soul level, he's been studying and utilizing the ancient Greek origins of psychotherapy and medicine for half a century, and has guided over 20 healing journeys to Greece since 1995. He first presented this work originating with the god of healing Asklepios, and achieved through dream incubation in his now classic book, The Practice of Dream Healing, which I also have, but not in front of me. It's a wonderful book. That was the first of your books that I read, Ed, and I just loved it. I lost my place here. Hold on. Yes. His new book, Passage to Poros, That's Poros, an island in the uh, off the coast of Greece. Passage to Poros in the sanctuary of the sea god is a hybrid of spiritual memoir, pilgrimage narrative, and cultural history centered on the Greek island of Poros and the ancient sanctuary of Poseidon and Kalaurea. And I'm not sure if I said that right. Which has functioned as a site of pilgrimage, peace, and healing for more than 3 millennia. He uses the island as a living temple and metaphor through which to explore trauma, myth, dream healing, modern asylum, and our relationship to the divine. Welcome, Ed. This is your third time with us, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Every time is wonderful with you. We have the deepest conversations, and your guests are always wonderful and very engaged. So thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. I want you to tell us about Poros. I had never heard of that island prior to reading your book. And also, I'd like to know what first called you to Poros and what made you recognize it as a spiritual sanctuary.
Oh, we can dive right into some wonderful stories. Thank you for that leading question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What first led me to Poros, I'm going to even back up. What first led me to the Greek tradition was on my 10th birthday. I grew up in New York City, and on our 10th birthday, we could get our adult library cards. So on my birthday, I galloped to the library after school, and I got my adult card, and I went up to the adult section upstairs, and these were floor-to-ceiling stacks of books, and I was really wandering around, and I had no idea. I was just I've always been a reader, and always looked to the wisdom in books for life guidance and support. So, but I had no idea what's going to be the first adult library book I'm going to take home.
Mm-hmm.
Scouts on, I was in between two floor-to-ceiling stacks, and something pushed, or for some reason, a book fell off a higher shelf over my head, and it fell right into my hands, and it was Homer's Iliad.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was at the time. It was a big, beautiful red bound edition. I remember it well. And I said, I don't know who you are or why you fell into my hands, but we're going home together. And so I read the Iliad at 10 years old, and I fell in love with the Greek tradition. And so
Wow.
I really have been reading and studying it that long. And I'm older than I look. So we're talking about 65 years of studying that tradition. All right. So that got me to the Greek tradition. How did I get to Poros? Well, a few years later, middle age, um, 1985, my family was on vacation on Cape Cod, or Cape Ann, and I found a book in a used bookstore that was the poetry of George Seferis.
Mm.
Seferis. He's not well known in the United States, but he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1963. He's a very well-known poet, of course, in Greece, but all over Europe. So I fell in love with his poetry, and I began translating some of it. And then I read his biographies and his journals, and I learned, well, he used to go on his writing retreats and for asylum, for sanctuary during the Greek Civil War. He went to this small, hardly known island called Poros, and that's where he wrote, and that's where he stayed safe during the Civil War. And so I thought, oh, well, next time I go to Greece, I have to go to Poros. And in fact, I want to go there and finish my translation work on him. So really, Homer, the dead poet, got me into the Greek tradition. Then, about 30 years later, George Seferis, the modern dead Greek poet, got me to Poros. And so I went to Poros first in 1987 on my own. I was on a solo pilgrimage for We can talk about why, but it's very related to, I'll say now briefly. As you mentioned, I have been specializing in working with military and veterans with the invisible wounds, post-traumatic stress disorder, and moral injury. Uh, that 1987 trip to Greece was because I've studied the Greek tradition my whole life. I know how much war they had. I knew that the Greek tragic playwrights, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, they were all war veterans. Sophocles and Euripides had been generals in the Athenian army, and they used tragedy as a communal healing ritual. So I knew about war. I knew how extensive it was in the Greek world, and I knew that they had ways for healing from it, for releasing the trauma that we don't have. And so I was on that journey in particular to research this citizen warrior tradition of ancient Greece and what their healing practices were. Okay,
Mm,
putting a lot of stories together now. So
yeah.
on that trip in 1987, I went to a site. In English, it looks like Epidaurus. In Greek, it's pronounced Epidavros. You were close, by the way. Aluria. That was correct with using the English pronunciation. In Greek,
Uh,
it's Calabria.
ah,
Calabria.
yes. I never studied Greek, only Latin in school.
And I didn't study Latin, so we have a very difficult conversation in the ancient languages. However, of course, caritas is Latin,
Yeah,
of course,
yes.
and it's a beautiful name. Oh, and do you know that in Latin the word derives from ancient Greek?
No, I didn't know that.
This is really
I
interesting. A footnote for you and your beautiful center. Um,
huh.
in ancient Greek, the word kata
Hmm.
had the first
Which is my daughter's name,
kara, right? Well,
C-A-R-A.
in, in ancient Greek, they didn't have a C in Greek. They have so, but it's K. But kara with a K in ancient Greek meant the head.
Oh,
And people used to say it was when you called somebody, well, you're my kata, you're my head. It was the same as calling somebody your beloved or your sweetheart.
oh, that's
So
interesting. Rather than heart.
using the head, yeah, it wasn't the heart. It's using the head is a way of telling somebody that you're sweet on them, they're your beloved, and that evolved into caritas and um, and God's love in
Mm,
Latin, which
mm,
you use beautifully.
mm. Interesting.
So that
So
ties our
what,
traditions together a little bit. Let
right.
me,
What
let me
made you
yeah. So
go ahead?
finishing the story.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So I went to Epidaurus, for the opening night of. They have a summer ancient theater festival there every summer, and I was there for the opening night, which was Euripides' play, The Trojan Women.
Mm,
You may remember I tell this story in the Practice of Dream Healing book about how
mm,
I met Asklepios. So the Trojan Women is one of the, if not the most intense anti-war play that we have.
mm.
And it was written by a general
Ha.
who knew the story and hated war. Okay,
Mhm.
so I attended that uh, that theater performance. Uh, it really changed my life. I
Mm,
experienced the catharsis that the Greeks teach was the goal of attending tragic theater, to be purged of all the accumulated negative emotions that you have. At that point, I had been working with war veterans for 10 years, and I had plenty of sour emotion to purge. So not only
Had you already been to Vietnam or did that come later?
that came later. That,
Okay.
that
So
comes later.
Greece came first.
Greece came first. Working with Vietnam veterans came first, but
Mhm.
traveling to Greece and learning to lead um, pilgrimage overseas in a safe and a facilitative way came first. So I learned that in Greece and practiced that in Greece for a while before I began doing it in Vietnam.
I see.
So we can get to that later because
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
I do use pilgrimage, or if we want to be clinical, we could call it immersion therapy.
Mm.
Same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
same thing. Immersing in another ecology, spirituality, value system, way of life that people live, and going where the wounds happen,
Mhm.
going where the divine visited, is extraordinarily transformational for us.
Mhm.
So I saw the Trojan women in the ancient theater, and I came out really transformed. I went in the theater thinking of myself as a psychotherapist for Vietnam veterans. I left that theater different.
Mhm.
I realized then and there that night, might have intellectually been able to say it, but I felt it in my whole being. War is the same. All wars are the same, all times, all places, everywhere. The costumes look different. The political reasons that we do it look different, but archetypally, in essence, war is the same always. It's an archetype, and it all keeps visiting and cursing humanity. And so I left that sanctuary saying, my calling and my job is much bigger than just trying to work on healing the wounds from the Vietnam War, but all wars, all times, and all places, I feel called to, as best as I possibly can, be a healer of the invisible wounds of war. All right.
Mhm.
So a few days later, I was on Poros. Same
Mhm.
trip, 1987, utterly life changing. So my professional identity changed as a result of seeing the play, The Trojan Women. And a few days later, as I was on Poros, and miracles really happened. I was finishing my translation of Sepphoris's poetry. Poros is a small, old volcanic island. Um, it's only got a small harbor village of a few thousand people, and it's built on an old volcanic rock. And at the very top was the sanctuary of Poseidon in ancient times. And that was the sanctuary. That was Asylia. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
I thought the coolest thing to do would be to finish my poetry project up on the mountaintop. So I
Mhm.
saved it for my last full day on the island, and I loaded my backpack with tomatoes and cheese, good Greek food, and my writing equipment, and I climbed the mountain. It was a 3 hour hike up there for me.
Mhm.
Beautiful, beautiful hike through pine forests and above the tree line with beautiful vistas of Greek islands floating in the distance. Well, I got to the top after 3 hours of a human hike, and I saw the sanctuary opening in front of me, maybe 50 feet in front of me, and Scout's honor, what should come walking out of the sanctuary but a giant sea turtle?
Oh, yes. I
A,
love the story of the sea turtle.
a sea turtle
Yeah.
on a mountaintop. What? Uh, I sat down in front of the turtle and we stared into each other's eyes for almost an hour. And then the turtle on its flippers walked around me, and I hope it was going back to the sea or to Mount Olympus, wherever. But I went into the sanctuary and said, what happened to me? What happened? Is this possible? Am I awake? As I said, miracles really happen. Um, a miracle technically is defined as something that seems to defy the laws of nature. Well,
Mm.
a sea turtle on a mountaintop certainly does. And that changed my life also in many ways. One is that um, by birth, I'm a Taurus, I'm a bull, and I really have that personality. And the turtle is a really, really good balance to the bull.
Mm.
Bull's charging forward and intense and stomps and bellows and rages. And the turtle is calm and grounded and close to the earth and has got his shell on for protection. And if it's perturbed, we don't know it. Nothing, we can't see anything bothering. So that balanced my personality. That was one matter. The other matter I want to share is that it also changed my work profoundly because I was there studying the ancient warrior tradition and how I could help and use it. And I came from the United States trying to help our warriors. Well, the turtle said to me, you came from the United States, but go back to Turtle Island. Of course, the name of our continent of North America, the Native American name. Go
Yes.
back to Turtle Island and learn from the original people here, from the Native Americans. So
Mhm.
I did come back and I spent about a year looking for a Native American teacher, and I found a wonderful man. And I did a 13-year apprenticeship with him, including very much studying the way the Native American communities heal their warriors in past and present, and working with a lot of Native American warriors, and even taking some to Vietnam when I began doing that later on.
Mhm.
So, 1987, these two trips to Greece with two poets, and then two sacred places, and some extraordinary and miraculous and unpredictable experiences really changed my life, changed my identity, changed the way I think about and practice my work, and set me on this path that I've been on ever since.
Wow. Yeah, when I think of turtle or tortoise, I also think of a little adventure that I had one time where I didn't watch where I was going, and I fell. My foot went into a crack in the ground, and I injured, not seriously, but I was kind of had to stay off my feet for a couple of weeks because I twisted one ankle, and then I had a hematoma on the other shin, and I got back to the house, my house, and I drew an animal card just to see, because I had a feeling I knew why this happened. I had been overwhelmed with work and feeling like there wasn't enough time and I had to work harder and faster and get more done. And this happened, and I thought, oh, okay, so maybe I was overdoing it a bit, and this is the way I am told to stop, right? So I drew an animal card, and it was the tortoise, and the explanation was beware, um, beware of a false sense of urgency.
Hmm.
And I thought that made all the sense in the world because I was feeling like I had a lot of urgency to get more done and, deadlines and all that stuff. And suddenly I couldn't go into work for a couple of weeks. And lo and behold, the center was still there when I did go back. Nothing had happened. So,
Yeah.
and I learned from that anytime I, get overwhelmed with things to do, it's time to pull back, not to try harder, but to pull back.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There's a Greek proverb that says simply, even when you're in a rush, move slowly.
Yeah. That's when you really need to move more slowly because you're not
Right,
paying as close attention, right? So,
right. The faster,
uh,
it's also built into physics. There's a principle in physics that says the faster an object moves across its surroundings, the less pressure it exerts. Literally, if we're moving fast, we're feeling less, we're seeing less, we're
yeah.
much less interactive with the environment.
Mm,
So, and turtle is still, I'm not saying that I've mastered these lessons. I'm still working on them and learning them. And good for you. And the same thing happens to me that accidents or I get ill when
mhm.
my body needs to shut down and I'm not listening well enough.
Yeah.
So a wiser wisdom will tell us to slow down or make us slow down if we're not willing to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a synchronicity with your turtle story too, wasn't there? Where a turtle showed up. Oh gosh, I can't remember now, but I mentioned it in my notes the synchronicity of there were three. The turtle showed up three different ways.
Oh, yes. Yes, on that trip to Greece, that the turtle showed up three different ways. The story I just told was actually the second time. The
Mm.
first time, and oh, let's note this. It was at the sanctuary of Poseidon.
Yes,
Okay. The
yes.
first time the turtle showed up was I went, there's a beautiful temple of Poseidon, not a sanctuary, just a temple. Sanctuary is much larger sacred grounds that includes temples and
Mm,
dormitories and priests and priestesses rooms and altars and such. So temples are not always but often in sanctuaries.
mm,
There's a beautiful temple to Poseidon that's on a peninsula about 40 kilometers south of Athens. And people go there to watch the sunset. And a lot of the Greek travel posters are that temple in the sunset looking
mm.
over the sea. Well, I went there to see the sunset. Which journey? Oh, yes, it's the same one because it happened three times. Before I went to Epidaurus and Poros on my own, I went to view the sunset from that temple. And while I was there, it was very crowded that day, and I wanted to be alone and meditate and pray. So I walked inland to a smaller uh, circular ruins to actually a temple of Athena. And I was there alone and meditating and praying. And there, a giant sea turtle walked out of those ruins also and came right up to my crossed legs. And we sat together for a long time till I had to get the last bus back to Athens, which I still regret. I should have just slept on the stones with the turtle. But so that was the first time, but that was not so far away. It was near the Temple of Poseidon, which was a clue.
Mhm.
And I didn't know till later that the turtle was one of Poseidon's totem animals. So
Mm,
represents Poseidon, the turtle and the bull. And as I shared, I'm Taurus. So I
mhm.
have the bull and I needed the turtle to be complete. And in my chakra system, you do, and some of us use the spirit animals for the different chakras. Well, turtle is in my grounding chakra, and the bull is in my core, and they're still making friends. They're learning to cooperate
Compliment.
instead of compete, which, by the way,
Mhm.
is Plato's definition of healing.
Ah,
Making friendships between the antagonistic elements in our nature is Plato's definition of healing.
yeah.
So
And
I'm
Jung also talks about reconciling the opposites.
right, right.
Tell us about the meaning of sanctuary. Uh, and you pronounced it differently a minute ago. Reading your book, I was pronouncing it Asylia, but you said, how do you pronounce it?
Well,
Asylia.
yeah, same thing. You're correct in English. It looks like that. It reads like that. It's Asylia in Greek.
Asylia.
Not
Okay. Accent on
always,
the I.
not always, but very, very commonly, the accent of a Greek word is on the next to the last syllable.
Yeah. Same
So,
with Portuguese.
yeah.
Yeah. In Portuguese, it would be Asylia.
Hmm. Yeah.
Also, that didn't occur to me though. So
But
what is the meaning of Asylia, and what was the original purpose of such places in ancient Greece?
uh, we translate it as sanctuary, but
Mhm.
our English word asylum comes from
Yes.
directly from this. So Asylia is asylum. But in ancient times, an Asylia was a place where we could go for healing or for help or support. Uh, As, As, Asylia they took in um, afflicted people who were looking for spiritual or physical healing, and refugees, and the displaced, and the shipwrecked, and war veterans who were homeless and wandering and had no place to go, and the poor and the afflicted. And they were places of inviolable safety and sanctuary. You were in there and nobody could harm you. Nobody could break in and kidnap you. No agents could break in and take you out because that was recognized as not only uh, unethical and a sin against other people, but there was a sin against the divine. And the
Mhm.
Bible also says that sanctuary is a divinely protected, divinely sanctioned place where people uh, receive complete and hospitality, welcome, support, safety, food, and healing, and receive all their needs. And it is inviolable. We are
Mhm.
sinning when we violate sanctuary. And we
And
can,
yet it was violated, right, with Demosthenes.
yes.
Goodness.
Uh,
Demonst I have trouble with that name, Demosthenes.
yes. We can tell that story because that's one of the famous historical events that happened on the island. So Demosthenes was a famous Athenian orator.
Mhm.
He was really good at making speeches.
Mhm.
He was criticized for not being so good at some other things.
Yeah.
Uh, he was actually he supposedly he was a great speech writer, a maker, but a mediocre warrior because he
Yeah.
did. All right, Philip and Alexander, Macedonia was becoming predominant during his time and taking over the Greek world, and he was fiercely committed to Athenian freedom and preserving Athenian values and independence. And so he did through very effective speech making. It was like a Patrick Henry of his time,
Mhm.
really moving people passionately to rouse up and resist oppression and tyranny and invasion. And so he did rouse the people of Athens to rebel against Macedonia. They did have a few huge battles, and Athens and its allies lost. And Demosthenes was on the run from being captured by the Macedonians. He knew he would be executed if they caught him. So he went to Poros and he went into the sanctuary for safety and protection. Okay. The Macedonians knew they couldn't go into the sanctuary and capture him and pull him out. So they were not ICE agents of the time because they didn't. However, they did stay outside the sanctuary and they said, we're not leaving. So we're laying siege to this place and we're not leaving until you come out and you're our prisoner.
Mhm.
So he waited a while and he was safe inside, but he finally decided to give himself up in order to protect the rest of the people and the sanctuary because it was under siege just for him.
Mhm.
So he said he would give up. He asked permission from his pursuers to write a farewell letter to his family before they took him prisoner because he knew he would be executed if he went off with them. They said, yes, go ahead and write the letter. And they laughed because he was nervously chewing on his pen. And ha ha ha, the great Demosthenes who preaches freedom is actually afraid of captivity, and afraid of us, his pursuers. Well, the pen was poisoned, and he had actually was committed suicide in order to die a free man and not be taken away and made a slave or executed. However, he even didn't want to violate sanctuary because he did this in the temple of Poseidon.
Mhm.
And as he was dying, he stumbled out and he said to the pursuers, now you can have me. Now carry out my body because I'm leaving my body and I can't die in the temple because that's a profanity also. There's
Ah.
no death allowed in the sacred sites. So
Mhm.
they carried him out, and technically, they caught him or he surrendered, but he didn't violate neither he nor they violated the rules of sacred sanctuary.
Okay, great. So, how can we use this as a metaphor for um, cultivating an inner sanctuary for ourselves when there's trouble in the world, or our life is in
Mhm.
chaos or crisis? How can we use these wonderful traditions to cultivate sanctuary both externally, in other words, where we live. I mean, we have sanctuary cities in the United States
Yes.
where, immigrants can come. But even in our own small community and also within ourselves, inner sanctuaries and outer sanctuaries, how can we use all of this wisdom?
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh, is it okay to talk about both the inner and the outer?
yes,
And could we be
yes.
political
Um,
a
Up
little
to
bit?
a point, yeah, a little
To a
bit.
point. Well, we have sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
Our religious organizations are supposed to provide sanctuary.
Mhm.
We're not supposed to be able to bust into a mosque or a church or a synagogue and drag people out. And it's happening.
It's
So let's just say that the sacred right of sanctuary is being severely violated now and in our country.
yes.
And that's a sin.
Hmm.
And we have the concept now of moral injury. So uh, every one of us is being morally injured by the violation of sanctuary that the United States used to, for not for everybody, but for many people, represented. And the Statue of Liberty is the call to sanctuary. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. This place was sanctuary, and millions
Yeah.
of people came here for sanctuary. And
Yeah.
so, without being political, everything we can do to uphold and restore and protect those values of sanctuary that the United States once represented and could again is something we can and should do. And many
Mhm.
people are doing it in small ways, in their
Mhm.
own churches, in their communities, in uh, sharing a spare bedroom for somebody in need,
Mhm.
in and being politically active and trying to protect these sacred values against their erosion. So, so externally we can do it. And if I may say so, you shared your daughter's wonderful service to Afghan women. She's
Mhm.
creating and providing sanctuary.
Yes.
These are wonderful people who are severely, severely oppressed and don't have safe people or safe places or safe practices, and your daughter is providing that for them.
Yeah.
So that's providing sanctuary. So
Yeah.
anytime we do that, anytime that we are moved and compassion with compassion and empathy to give service to more challenged and afflicted people, we're providing sanctuary. Uh,
Yes.
that,
And also community. Where does community come in? Is that not an integral part of having a sanctuary place? Okay.
yes, and in the ancient world, sanctuaries were living communities.
Yeah.
People lived there full time. On Poros, for example, on the mountaintop are the ruins of Poseidon's sanctuary. That was just sacred grounds. But right across the little dirt road, there are the ruins of the large village where people lived who were all in service to the sanctuary.
Uh-huh.
So it it takes a village
Yeah.
to raise a child, but it takes a big village to run a sanctuary
Mm.
also. And sanctuaries were intact communities that were operating for the benefit of all the people who came in there. And I actually have a very simple three-word recipe for what we need for healing. Spirituality in community.
Mm.
And that's what we do in sanctuaries. We enter, we create community, and it's not only people living there, but the people who arrive are coming for similar reasons. So, like when I lead pilgrimages, if I'm taking 8 or 10 people on a journey to Greece, well, they were strangers at the beginning, but we do a lot of group work and become a very, very supportive, intact, intimate community. So we're all helping each other in our healing work. We're even sometimes having dreams about or for each other. We're participating in rituals that help each other, not just ourselves. So it's really important to become community. And that's another thing that other cultures, like the Vietnamese and the Greek and the Native American, have. Their cultures are still very communal and intact and interrelated, and they haven't developed the extreme uh, hyper individuality that we have, where we're also isolated and feel like we don't have community.
Mhm.
So, yes, community is critical. And then continuing to build on your last question about building inner sanctuary. Yes, 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 we must. And the essence of many of the spiritual practices of, well, if we're a Buddhist practitioner and we're meditating regularly and we're working on the koans and we're working on achieving um, compassionate detachment instead of being swept away by our emotions, we're creating inner sanctuary. We're creating a safe, quiet inner place to live where our souls can live and be safe no matter what's going on around us. So that's also actually the goal of, back to Greece, the Stoic philosophers taught the same thing. The lesson of Stoicism, we misunderstand it. The word has been reduced and misused in English to mean people who are hard and not feeling. It's not what it means.
And repressed or suppressing, their emotions, right? It's
Yeah,
come to mean that. And I would like to know more about that tradition because I got the message in your book that that is not the case,
right.
that is wrong. But
Mhm.
um, can you tell us a little bit about that Stoic tradition?
Yeah, I can. Right. Well, the word Stoic comes from the word stoa, which was a beautiful, large, covered, classical Greek building. And
Mm,
it all simply comes from where the philosophers used to hang out in the marketplace to get out of the sun. They'd be on the portico of the stoas and teaching their philosophy there. So it comes directly from the Greek marketplace.
mm,
The Stoic philosophers, both Greece and Rome, they became actually more famous in Rome. People have heard of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Uh,
mm,
that the most famous, maybe probably the most famous work of a Stoic philosopher that we commonly know. Uh, but Seneca was, Cicero was, Epictetus was. Um, Earlier, the Socratic tradition was also Stoic. What Stoicism originally meant was not to repress your emotions and not feel them, but rather, like the Buddhist ideal, to achieve detachment from the external event. So you feel your emotions, but you're not controlled by them. You're not unduly moved by them. You're not,
mhm,
uh, you don't become uncentered because of your
mhm,
passions. But you can feel your emotions, but you can also think clearly and not have your rationality confused. And you also, your values are intact. So the ideal in Stoicism was what we're saying. They use the word citadel. Build an inner citadel
mhm,
where you know your values, you know your spirit guides, you know your philosophy, you're determined to live by it, and it's impenetrable. So
yeah,
it's that inviolable inner sanctuary. It's not outside us, it's inside us. And
yes.
the ideal of Stoicism and of Buddhism and of some other practices is to have that inner sanctuary or inner citadel where we really know ourselves and are fully connected to ourselves and can't be shaken from that sacred position no
Right.
matter what the external world is doing.
Which is actually deeper than the emotions. The emotions feel very deep, but there's something much deeper. And if we can reach that, then the emotions become unimportant. No.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
That's
right.
citadel,
Uh,
as you say.
when we were young therapists, do you remember the most important thing that everybody was asking was, well, how did that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
As if that were the ultimate. And
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
and it was a necessary corrective because we have become so numb and unaware of our feelings in general.
Mm-hmm.
So we were learning to feel again when we're asking those questions for decades. But you're right. The emotions, they come and they go. They're like the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's beautiful and sunny, and sometimes it's stormy, and sometimes it's hot, and sometimes it's cold. And we're meant to ride them like we appreciate the weather, but be in a much, much deeper, more centered place in the soul and in the spirit that is really
That doesn't come and
profound.
go.
It doesn't come and go, and
Yeah.
it's our essence, it's our core that is
Mm-hmm.
always there to guide and support us.
You describe Poros as a threshold place. What thresholds does the island awaken in travelers?
Wow. Well, you might meet a turtle, but there's more. Of course, there's more than that.
Thresholds.
What I mean by that is that what we might call the veil or the boundary between the visible and the invisible worlds are
Mm-hmm.
very thin, and so uh, all kinds of synchronistic experiences come through and appear very readily and easily. So in offering strange and miraculous experiences like I had with Turtle, they happen with surprising regularity there. That's one matter. Secondly, the geography is quite unique. There's a volcanic island called Methana. We get our word methane from that. That's not very far away. You can see it from the island of Poros. Well, 45,000 years ago, it blew up. And so half the island of Poros is volcanic stone that was thrown there by the explosion of the volcano. Underneath that, on the seabed, it's a huge, thick bed of crystals.
Yeah,
This
that was
is,
impressive.
yeah,
That says a lot for the energy on the island.
yeah.
Yeah.
So right. It's the seabed on the bed of crystals on top of it with tons and tons of volcanic rock on top of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it has an incredible energy that everybody feels when they're there. There's
Mm-hmm.
something different about it. In addition to that, the word that was hard to pronounce, Calabria, Calabria,
Lavinia.
Calauria.
Oh, yes.
That one.
That island.
That was one of Poseidon. That was Poseidon's nickname on the island,
Ah,
Poseidonos Palavrios. It means good winds or sweet breezes. It is so clean. It's the sweetest air I've ever smelled in my life. Just
hmm,
taking the deep breaths in one day of breathing that air, and you feel like your whole body is cleansed of decades of pollution.
hmm.
So, as a natural place, it's a threshold as well. In addition to that, we can talk about the practice of dream healing under the god of healing, Asklepios.
Yes, before we go to that,
Mhm.
I'd like to just talk about, and this also could be an effect of being on a bed of crystal and just having worthy traditions. But you talk a lot in the book about the people of Poros
Yes.
and the Philos
It's another,
Philoxenia? Philoxenia?
that's so
Philoxenia?
close. Philox- Philoxenia.
Philoxenia.
Philoxenia. Yeah.
Ah, so
Okay.
the accent not on the next to last vowel.
No, it's on the next.
Philoxenia. Okay.
Philoxenia.
Which is the opposite of xenophobia.
Right. And isn't this interesting? And let's all learn from this. In English, we have the word xenophobia.
Hmm.
It's the same xenos. It's the same prefix.
Hmm.
And that means the stranger.
Yes.
Literally, uh, xenophobia is fear of the stranger.
And philoxenia is
And
love of the
it's
stranger.
love of the stranger. Philo is friendship. It means
Hmm.
love of the stranger, making friends with the stranger.
Hmm.
So, how is it that in our modern English we have xenophobia, fear the stranger, but we don't have philoxenia, love the stranger?
I never heard that word before
And
reading your
that's
book.
another way, back to your earlier beautiful question, another way we can restore sanctuary is practicing that. Love
Yeah.
the stranger.
Yeah.
When we meet somebody we don't know, be friendly, be
Hmm.
warm, be welcoming.
Yeah.
Be careful as you must be because these are dangerous times. But mostly, most people are not dangerous, and most people are lonely and want to be reached out to and touched. So, in any way we can, restore philoxenia. Make friends with strangers. Be
Yeah.
friendly at the cash register or to the bank teller, or to the waiter or waitress.
Hmm. Yes.
Somebody's asking, yes, Philadelphia. That's right. We have it.
Right. Philadelphia.
The and Adelphos and Adelphi is brother and sister. So Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love, and
Hmm.
it was meant to be. And at the beginning, at least between William Penn and the Quakers and the Native Americans, they were trying. There was brotherly love attempted and practiced there to some degree, and there was some sanctuary going on there for a while. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, so back to the question, we don't have the term, but we need it. Philoxenia. Philoxenia is an ancient Greek value, so it's really practiced all over the country. But
Mhm.
more on Poros than about anywhere else. They are such extraordinarily warm, friendly, welcoming people that it's actually, if a stranger is willing and a little bit open-hearted, we become one with the people very, very quickly and easily. So they tell me I'm a local, and I love it, and I feel it when I'm there. Uh,
What would you say are the causes of xenophobia and how can we heal them? How can we develop philoxenia?
ah, there's a beautiful African proverb that says, "My enemy is someone whose story I have not yet heard."
Mm,
So a really good way to practice philoxenia is to sit down with strangers and share stories.
mm,
Who are you? And tell me about yourself. And let me tell you about myself. And let's get to know each other in a deep way. Not
mm,
just, hi, how are you today? Okay, leave me alone. But really talk. Uh, one combat veteran that I work with, who he was severely wounded in combat, bless him. So he's partially disabled. And he says, when people ask me how I am every day, 'cause they have a lot, I'm on crutches, they just want a quick answer. I'm okay. Don't worry about me today. How I answer them now, he said, is thank you for asking. If you really want to know, sit down and buy me a cup of coffee and let's talk for an hour.
mm.
And as a veteran, he says, I don't want drive-by caring. I
Mm,
need the real thing. And so this is what we're talking about, overcoming the strangeness. And
yeah.
civilians and veterans feel that way too. Like, we're not the same. We've had such different experiences. I don't know you. I don't know how to talk to you. I'm afraid even though we're all Americans, you've become a stranger.
Mm,
No, people want to, they want to talk. They want us to care. They
mm,
really want us to care. So we can also develop philoxenia by going out of our way to talk to anybody in our culture who is an outlier, who is oppressed, who is disabled, who feels for whatever reason unwanted and unwelcome. So
Mhm.
building relations, one-on-one, in small groups, in community organization, any way we do it. But return the practice of loving the stranger and making friendship with one you don't know and finding what's in common also.
Yeah.
I'll mention my trips to Vietnam in this regard. The Vietnamese are incredibly welcoming to Americans. I've led 19 trips there, so about a year and a half in country, and I've never once experienced a negative word or attitude or uh, nasty remark about Americans. Our veterans are really afraid to go, and many of them expect to be arrested when we get there. They did 50 years ago because they still
Mhm.
feel guilty. The Vietnamese don't treat us that way at all. They really practice the philoxenia we're talking about. Uh, Viet Cong veterans have said to American veterans in my groups, um, Americans say, "Well, why aren't you angry? Why don't you hate us for what we did to you?" And the Vietnamese, I'm quoting Viet Cong veterans to Americans, "We are brothers and sisters forever because we survived the same hell."
Mhm.
And we're not enemies. Well, the war was over on April 30th. We were your friends on May 1st. Why did it take you so long to realize that?
Mhm.
And Vietnamese and American veterans must become the lips and the tongue of the same mouth, telling the world the same story.
Mhm.
That's brilliant. That's visionary. If we, if the Ukrainians and Russians could sit down and talk to each other and say, we're brothers and sisters in the same hell, and
Yeah.
let's talk about it instead of killing each other, or the Palestinians and Israelis. It doesn't matter. Any warring group. There's a vision for actually, we're small, and I don't mean to be pompous or anything, but there's a vision for world healing here. I
Mhm.
would like to take this to the United Nations and say, everybody, stop fighting for your own rights and privileges and riches and wealth and resources, and let's all tell the same story because we're all in a suffering, traumatized world together. And if we talk
Yeah.
to each other about it and listen to each other's stories and realize we're all suffering from the same thing and we're all harming each other and our own people in the same way, then we can stop. So I
Yeah.
actually think that trauma can be a profound portal for healing the collective as well as for individual healing if we use it the right way. And it works when I go to Vietnam and when I go to Greece. And I am working by Zoom. One of my books, Warriors Return, is translated into both Russian and Ukrainian, and
Mm.
working with both of them by Zoom. And
Well,
uh, I'm trying to get the ones who are talking to me to talk to each other. Not quite yet, but they said we want to. We can't because it's illegal now in our country, but as soon as possible, we will. And in my work with Russians, I've brought American veterans into dialogue with Russians, including
mm.
American Air Force veterans who were um, staffing our intercontinental ballistic missiles that were aimed at Russia.
Mm.
We talked about that together. Russians and Americans, that we all survived the Cold War. We were all under monstrous death threats from each other's country, and we caused each other the same wound. And let's talk about it and grieve that together and be determined to build a world of friendship instead of living in terror of each other.
Yeah. One of the things that really moved me and struck me um, was the part in the book where you talk about the difference in warrior training between Greek warriors and American warriors, where Americans are taught that their duty is to kill, and the Greek warriors are taught their duty is to protect and defend. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. Thank you for that very important observation. Uh, I'm going to go to Greek mythology for a moment to explore this together. In the Greek pantheon of the gods and goddesses, there were two deities of war.
Uh,
One
yes,
was
Athena.
Athena, right, the goddess.
Yes.
She was a goddess of war, and Ares, the god of war.
Yeah.
And though they were both war deities, they were profoundly different.
Mm-hmm.
Homer called Ares the god who delights in slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who wants to go to war, who wants the experience of killing. And I'm sorry to say that some people really join our military to have that experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he's the one who, as the veterans say, gets all jacked up, gets really into the fight, and his adrenaline is rushing, and he really loves that exceeding excitement, the most intense adrenaline rush you can get. So that's Ares. Athena is the goddess of war, is the protector. When we in ancient times, when people climbed the Acropolis, the Parthenon is up there, of course, our main temple. But the first thing they saw was a statue of Athena standing outside, and she was called Athena Promachos, which meant the defender, the one in the front, pro in front, and machos in front of the battle. The one in front of the battle who protects and defends the people and the civilization and the city from harm. She's not trying to cause harm. And she was a diplomat. And her lesson was war and violence is the very last resort when everything else has failed and there's no other way to protect our loved ones but by fighting. So, an Iraq veteran I've worked with, when he came home, he went to Iraq gung ho, believing what the government said. He came home saying that war was all wrong, we shouldn't be there. And what I learned in Iraq from serving our country in Iraq is that from now on and forevermore, I'm a pacifist, and I will be a pacifist until somebody is trying to break down my front door and trying to harm my wife and children. That's the only time I'll ever be violent again.
Yeah, when you talk about moral injury,
Yeah.
um, it's much more, we're much more liable for that when we're taught to destroy instead of protect, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And so I imagine that the trauma and the PTSD that our veterans experience, because often they are going against their own moral judgment or moral values, um, is has got to be much greater than the warrior who kills because there's no other way out, or because it's absolutely necessary, and not because they were trained to do that is their primary objective.
Yes. So, death psychology teaches us that every archetype has its shadow.
Yeah.
And shadow are the denied or the negative dimensions of the archetype.
Yeah.
So the way I've come to view it, and I work with our veterans, whether I'm bring here stateside or if they come to Greece or to Vietnam with me, is that you have become possessed. You served not because you chose to, but because you were forced to under these conditions, so that you served the shadow of the warrior archetype. The warrior doesn't seek to kill. That's not and destroy. That's not his goal, as we both said. Preservation and protection is. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're sent as an aggressor to kill,
Mm-hmm.
rather than as a protector to reduce the violence, then you're in the shadow of the warrior. So you're a servant of Ares, not a servant of Athena. You're in the shadow of Ares, not in the light of Athena. And what we do is, in working to heal PTSD and moral injury, we work on transferring that inner back into the inner sanctuary, that inner devotion from Aries and letting that go and transferring it. Not don't You can't become a civilian again. Once a warrior, always a warrior. It's always part of you, part of your identity, and we need it. We might need it to protect people. When there have been recent mass shootings, sometimes when the civilians are running away, veterans in the crowd have run toward the guns to protect the civilians and try to stop the shooting. In the school massacre in Florida, the two coaches who ran into the guns and gave their lives to save the kids were veterans. That's what
Yeah.
warriors do.
Mm.
They don't try to kill. They don't like killing, but that's what they do. They protect and preserve life.
Yeah. So let's talk about Poseidon, Poseidon, Poseidon,
Mm-hmm.
Poseidon, Poseidon. Um, I actually visited a place a year and a half ago. I was in Italy with my son, and we stumbled across a place that we had never heard of. We just happened to be there, called Paestum, which was an ancient Greek establishment, civilization that they called Poseidonia, if I'm saying that right, Poseidonia,
Mm-hmm.
after Poseidon. And there's a beautiful temple to Poseidon and another to Athena and a third one. And at this moment, I can't remember who the third one is for, but it was quite a surprise and very, very exciting to see that, to be there. The Romans took it over and renamed it Paestum. But
Oh.
for several hundred years, the Greeks had built this beautiful place. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know about that place in particular, but
Mm,
I do know that, uh, well, before there was Rome and Italy, there was Greece, and that there were many, many Greek colonies on that part of
mm,
Europe, and
mm.
many Greek cities were built there.
Okay.
So I know
So
that.
let's talk about Poseidon and what he represents. He's a very kind of dual figure, right?
Yes,
He
very much.
represents opposites
Yes.
in many ways. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about
Sure.
him and how does he, what is he a metaphor for in our own archetypal makeup? And you refer to the ancient Greek gods and goddesses as god powers at one point.
Yes.
So what god power does Poseidon represent?
Well, first, I'll share with our friends here tonight that I use God power as a phrase so that people are more comfortable talking about the gods and goddesses. Because
Mhm,
I don't mean that we worship them as idols. Well,
right.
actually, the Greeks weren't idol worshippers either. We really misunderstand paganism when we
Mhm,
they were really believed that the statues were gods and goddesses. They didn't. The statues were beautiful representations that were gifts to the divine to attract that energy into the statue, the personification, so we could have a personal relationship with it. So
mhm,
all of the gods and goddesses represent archetypes, and all together we could say they are the one. Plato and Aristotle were working toward a belief in the one behind the many.
mhm,
So it seems like civilization was even evolving toward the idea of monotheism, um, but not by rejecting all the. It's complicated. We
Yeah.
shouldn't have rejected all the gods and goddesses because they are the archetypes that are alive in us.
Yes.
And at the same time, we shouldn't worship them as the one and the only and the ultimate, because they're not. They're in between figures. There's actually in the Greek, ancient Greek, they would be maybe more correctly called daemons, Daimon,
Mm-hmm.
which Christianity turned into demons, so they were afraid of it. But a daemon was an intermediary between the human and the divine.
Like the Roman muses.
Yes, like the muses.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many more spirit, spiritual presences that are intermediaries for us than we know about.
Mm-hmm.
So each of the major and all the gods and goddesses are archetypal for us.
Yes.
So like some of them are easy. We mentioned Athena and Ares as deities of war. Well, not exclusively. Athena represents other things as well. Aphrodite, we think, is easy because we think of love and sexuality and beauty,
Mm-hmm.
and she carries those. Well, Poseidon, as you said, is a very complicated and ambivalent guy. Um, there's much belief that he was the king of the gods before Zeus during the Bronze Age. So he's a much earlier god. His name Poseidon derives in part from really early human language, Poseida. Da was the name, like Gaia, Ga, Da were names for the Earth Mother goddess, and
Mm-hmm.
Posi meant to be married or to be a consort. So Posida he's not the sea, the god of the sea. He's the male fertilizing principle, and the sea is the womb of all life, where it originated, where it comes from. So Poseidon is the great male fertility principle that um, that completes the birth process and brings things to life. He was a fertility god in other ways and other places. So he was also associated, well, the sea, he's also associated with fresh water. And in some places, he was a fertility god who was prayed to and appealed to for healthy rains and waters. Um, as we said, he has the name Calabria, good breezes. So he's also the god of good winds. And if we're at sea and we're caught in a storm, well, Poseidon's angry and we should throw Jonah overboard or pray to him. I know sailors in modern sailors in Greece. Oh, Poseidon, by the way, eventually, well, the gods and goddesses morphed over time into saints and Christian figures. So the great mother goddess eventually became the smaller individual goddesses, and they all eventually became Mother Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly not a goddess, but she's worshipped as, and loved as a goddess.
Yes.
And she's more beloved in Greece, by the way, than any other figure in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And on the island of Poseidon, Mary, a version of Mary, is um, their patron saint.
Interesting.
Um, yes, and they fired the warrior and they replaced him with Mary, the healer.
Yeah.
Really, they used to have Saint George as their patron, and Saint George is the protector of warriors. But
Mm-hmm.
in recent years, they said, hopefully, we don't need warriors anymore. And they have a beautiful version of Mary on the island. Um, there's a monastery called the Monastery of the Virgin of the Life Giving Spring, because it was built on a healing spring that comes out of the mountains that the metropolitan of the Greek Orthodox Church in the 1700s had a kidney ailment that couldn't heal, and he went to Poros and took these waters, and it healed him. So he built a monastery there, and it's been a beautiful place for prayer and sanctuary ever since. So what does Poseidon represent? So he represents fertility. He represents kingship, and he also represents the frustration and resentment that we have when we feel like we're not getting our fair share and our fair due. He really felt ripped off by his brothers Zeus, and nobody wanted the underworld, so Hades
Hmm.
could keep that, but Poseidon felt replaced by because he had been the king, but he was replaced by Zeus, and so they were always competing. And so Poseidon also represents striving, but also the positive and negative,
Yeah.
accomplishment through striving, and too much emotion, and you're going to defeat yourself. So Poseidon, we have many pictures of him causing storms when he's angry. Well, the lesson of that, he was the god of earthquakes. And the
Mm-hmm.
lesson there was the ancient, and they believed, remember, we said the bull is one of his totems.
Hmm.
The ancients believed that there was a giant bull that lived under the sea, and that when human beings fell out of balance with nature, then Poseidon's bull kicked and roared down under the sea, and that's what caused the earthquakes. And so when there's climate change, uh, I'll answer that question. Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah.
When there's
We're
climate
not, we're
change,
almost there at
uh,
Q&A, but not quite.
when there's climate change, we could easily say the bull from the sea is kicking and roaring and screaming and bringing about earthquakes and storms and cataclysms because we've fallen so out of balance with nature. And the message is stop it, get back in balance, heal
Mhm.
Mother Earth because we've caused this terrible imbalance.
Yeah, it's interesting because he also represents quelling the storm.
Yes,
So the sailors pray to Poseidon when there is a storm because he can quell that storm. He can,
right.
um, yeah.
Yes, and as I began to share, I do know Greek sailors who were caught in storms who prayed to Poseidon or Saint Nicholas and
Mm.
had miraculous healing. Well, they were miraculously saved or rescued when they thought they were doomed to drown at sea. So
Mm.
this stuff still works.
Yeah, it's interesting though, as a god, you expect a god to represent one thing, but he represents
Ah,
one thing and the opposite.
but that's true of all the gods and goddesses because they all
Uh,
have their shadows. So,
yeah.
and some of the ways I work with psychological challenges. So, for example, somebody has a pornography addiction.
Hmm.
Well, which god or goddess are you having trouble with? I have an addiction. I have to go to a 12-step program and learn to control it. Maybe, or you're out of balance with one of the archetypes and you need to heal that and heal your old traumas or wounds from that archetype and get back in balance. So I worked with a man who had a very severe pornography addiction, and he eventually he was a frustrated artist. His parents didn't let him go to art school, so he
Hmm.
became an architect and he hated it. Well, he began, instead of using pornography, he began respectfully studying the female form and drawing that and going to art museums and studying, respectfully studying the nude and healing his addiction to pornography by, see, going from the shadow of Aphrodite, which is pornography, to the worship of Aphrodite, which is beautiful artwork. You don't have to hide from the nude body, but you do
Hmm.
have to respect it and honor it and not abuse it and not objectify it.
Hmm.
Jung said, and I use this extensively, and we've talked about it in several ways tonight already. Jung said that what used to be the gods and the goddesses have become our diseases. Yes.
Hmm.
So we're affirming that and saying, okay, so we can turn it back and do our psycho spiritual healing work by discovering what is the god or goddess in my affliction, in my disease, and how can I heal my relationship to that archetype.
Hmm.
So, the warrior can go from, I love to kill, I was a servant of Ares, to, no, that's wrong, but I'm a servant of Athena. and I become a protector.
Mhm.
A person with sexual difficulties can go to, um, I can learn to worship Aphrodite in a loving, respectful, honorable way that doesn't hurt anybody. And I can work on healing my addiction that way because I really do have a love hunger. And
Mhm.
I've been trying to satisfy that with pornography, but it doesn't work. So let's find ways of really cleansing your trauma and how you got hooked on pornography, and also honoring your love hunger and finding healthy ways to satisfy it that are creative and enlightening and spiritual rather than harmful.
Yeah. Yeah. Not hiding from the shadow, but integrating it in positive ways.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, and it really works.
So let's talk about Asclepius,
Yes,
his the god of dream healing.
yes. Okay, so Asklepios dates to, well, we have testimonies of Asclepian healing that go back to about 1400 BC. And Asclepius, there are different stories of his origins. I don't want to get too lost in all the stories.
Yeah, the one that I know is how he was raised by Chiron, the centaur,
Right,
who taught him the healing arts.
right. Well, Asclepius' father was Apollo, the god of medicine.
Yes,
His mother was Coronis, a mortal woman. He
yes.
became a healer and a savior, and he walked around the Mediterranean world in his robe and his sandals and with his staff healing people. So, uh, God the Father and a mortal mother who became a healer who just wandered the land, bringing healing to people. Does that sound
Mhm.
like anybody else we know? So he really fulfills those dimensions of the healer archetype that actually recur in other times and places around the world, not only in Christianity and not only in Greece.
Mhm.
Okay, so he dates to 1400 BC when his tradition was already established. The key element in, oh, all right, back to the story. Uh, while his mother was pregnant with him, Apollo was not an attentive lover or father. And
Right.
so Coronis, the mother, fell in love with a mortal man. And Apollo then had a fit of jealousy and he had Artemis kill her.
Mhm.
Immediately, and she was put on the funeral pyre, and immediately Apollo uh, um, grieved what he did and swooped down and took the baby out of her womb. So Asclepius, so there too, he's the healer who's the wounded healer from the birth trauma, like all of us.
Mhm.
And Apollo saved him, but then gave him to Chiron the center to raise because Apollo, he's the god of medicine, but he has a lousy bedside manner. He's not very, he's cool and aloof. He's the
Yeah.
god of the inner light. He sees, but he doesn't love.
Mm.
So Chiron was, as the centaur, he was a wise centaur who knew chants and plant medicine, earth medicine, and raised Asclepius and gave him all those gifts.
Yes.
And then Asclepius had the medical knowledge of Apollo from his father, the earth medicine teachings from Chiron, his mentor, and to those he added the human dimension, which is words. He
Mhm.
talked and he listened. One of his epithets was he was called the listener
Mm.
because he listened deeply to people's stories. He didn't practice brief therapy saying you don't need to tell your story, you just need to do this technique. He and his name is means everlastingly gentle. So he
Mhm.
listened very lovingly and gently with a huge open heart. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's in general. He established healing sanctuaries all over the Mediterranean world. We know of over about 320 from that actually stretched from Egypt all the way to Spain and Portugal, and from the northern coast of Africa up into the Caucasus. So it wasn't only Greece. And
Yeah.
I've been to Bolivia, and one of my books was translated there, and I visited Asklepios sanctuaries that were, I said Bolivia, I'm sorry, Bulgaria.
Okay.
You were near Bolivia. I was near Bolivia.
Okay.
So the sanctuaries went that far and were that widespread all over the Mediterranean world. They were ideal holistic healing sanctuaries. Everybody was welcome, men and women, emperors and slaves. It was the ideal um, sliding scale. You didn't pay anything when you went in, and you paid whatever you could afford for your healing when you left. So if a slave only had an apple to give, that was enough. But an emperor, Marcus Aurelius, had two Asclepian healings. He built new buildings for the
Mm.
sanctuaries. So you gave what you could give according to what you could afford. They were holistic healing sanctuaries, but not like ours where you go and you sign up for one workshop. I'm going to do yoga for a week at Esalen, something like that. No, you got everything. There was psychotherapy, there was dream work, there was massage, there was acupressure, there was gymnastics, there was nutrition and dietetics. Uh, every sanctuary had a theater, so they performed the tragedies there, and people acted in the tragedies or watched the tragedies to get catharsis. They had astronomy lessons, everything, and you stayed in the holistic sanctuary for as long as you needed until there was some message, a dream or a vision or something happened, so knew that you were called to appear before the God. Then that's really when the deepest healing happened. Then they had the practice that was called in Greek enchemesis, which we translate as dream incubation.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to Native American vision questing, where
Mm.
you fast and you pray and you set intentions and you go into isolation. And actually, in the classical era, you went into a special building that was reserved for nothing else but dream incubation, and you laid on a couch that was called a klinikos, and our word clinic comes from that.
Mm.
And you just laid there waiting and fasting and dreaming and praying and watching until you had a dream or a vision or some kind of strange synchronistic event that that either healed you on the spot or brought you the prescription, the recipe for what you need to do to heal yourself.
And you ask when you were in that chamber of where you would sleep and dream, you were asking Asklepios for a dream. You were asking that the dream incubation was a prayer to Asklepios to give you a dream so that you could know what to do, what you needed to do to heal, which is what I find so empowering about dreams, is that the answers to the questions, and even if you haven't asked a question, every dream is always giving you the next step in your in your journey to wholeness and evolution, and whatever you're being challenged with at that time is what every dream is trying to inform us about. But so yeah, it was very when I read that book of yours on on the dream healing, I was so turned on by that because I love dreams, and I think that dreaming is a very spiritual call, and it's a call for change always, but it's always a change toward who you are, not away from who you are, right? It's always a call toward a more authentic expression of who we are, right? But
Right.
yeah, so I found that, I find that the Asklepian healing tradition to get information from dreams as to how we need to heal is something that I've used a lot in my healing practice and my dream work practice. But I found it so inspiring that I almost named our center, because I read the book before starting our center, and I almost named it the Asklepios Center. But I thought nobody's going to know how to spell that or how to say that, and so I changed my mind and called it Caritas. But
You changed your mind about the name, but you didn't lose your devotion to dreams and dream work.
yes, definitely, yeah, it's always been an important part of what I do.
And that's another way that we practice sanctuary in our modern times and personally. We can incubate ourselves, of course. We can put ourselves on a dream pilgrimage. First of all, I certainly hope that you and I both value dreams. I hope that our friends who are listening pay attention to their dreams and hope maybe keep dream journals and really think about them. Uh, and there are many traditional cultures around the world where the first thing they do in the morning is talk about their dreams.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
it's not something to be forgotten or shrugged off or
Or dismissed. Yeah.
no, no, no. As
Mm.
you say, it's a message from the soul. And
Mm.
also, some cultures conceive that, well, our ego is asleep. And so the soul is free to travel because the
Yeah,
ego is out of the way. And so,
right.
really, when we're dreaming, we're on profound soul journeys, and they
Mm.
always have guidance to give us. It's not always easy to discover. It's good to have a guide and helper like you to help
Mm.
unravel them, but
Mm.
we can also do that work ourselves. And
Yeah.
um, and sometimes I work with people who decide, well, I can't go to Greece and I can't put weeks aside, but I can take this weekend off and I can journal and set my intentions and fast and pray and set up an altar and then incubate myself.
Yeah.
And it
And
works.
create an inner sanctuary.
Yeah. Yes. One Jungian analyst I spoke with about this, who was a senior analyst, and he laughed at how hard I work at this, and I travel all the way to Greece. And he said, well, he was an elder when he said this, but he said, I finally realized that the only dream incubation center we really need is our pillow on our bed.
Yeah. And that is what is so empowering about dream work, is that the answers are coming from our own unconscious,
Yes.
which knows what we need to learn, what we need to understand.
May I just edit your statement? I agree with you fully. I just want to emphasize for our friends, our own unconscious. We don't own our unconscious. We have our individual and the collective unconscious. So when we say
Yes.
our own unconscious, we're talking about all of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was stressing own in the sense that it's not some therapist telling me what I need to do. It's my inner wisdom
Yes.
that that I struggle to have access to in my waking consciousness, in my waking life, that comes to the fore, comes, bubbles up during dreams. If we can understand, if we learn how to unpack them and how to understand what they're saying, that they speak to us in a language of symbol and metaphor. So it's just a matter of seeing each element in the dream symbolically, and not necessarily take everything at face value, but see the symbol and the metaphor in it.
Um,
Um, I would love to go on talking about dreams. It's one of my favorite subjects, but I think we should open up the discussion to our audience here. And I will start by reading what is in the chat. And it's hi, Ed, Rick Chrisman here. Did you ever come across the Ajax project, which works with veterans.
Uh, I'm not sure, Rick. Are you referring to the project that recites Greek tragedies?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was an outgrowth post-Iraq War,
right.
and it was a therapeutic setting in which I think it was either seen from Ajax or the entire play, and the um, the enterprise was to uh, share what the experience of the play was for the viewers.
Yes, right. So thank you for bringing that up for everybody. So yes, I know about that project, and that one and some others were traveling Greek tragedies around to military bases and veteran groups and giving not full performances but staged readings, and then having talkbacks with the veterans about uh, what did they relate to and how did they see their own experiences in there. And it's very, very effective. And you
Yeah.
know, I use that in Greece as well. But the important part that we can connect to our conversation now is that, well, warriors universalize their experience. Oh, it's not just what I experienced in Iraq or Afghanistan, it's what all warriors from all times and all places have experienced and suffered. And so they're entering into the worldwide warrior tradition and legacy and realizing they're not alone. Anybody who's been through such a horrific experience is going to have these kinds of struggles.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
also, in the Greek tragedies, sometimes there's transformation. And so it also demonstrates that healing is possible.
Yeah, by the protagonist, who
Yeah.
is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it's like in Ajax, he still killed himself, but in the tragedy, but he transformed his death from a punishment into something noble that he was choosing to wash his shame away. So
Yeah.
even when it's a tragic ending, we think that's universally sad. No, it's not. It's also honorable and noble,
Mhm.
and it demonstrates that struggle to restore honor in the warrior tradition after it's been besmirched.
Well, I hesitate very much to bring up current politics, but I have to believe that you must be repelled, to say the very least, about our Secretary of Indefensible Wars.
Yes, yes. I could explode right now, my friend,
Oh, okay. Well,
well, no,
you-
it's okay. It's incredibly upsetting, and the degree of what we've mentioned moral injury, the degree of moral injury that's being caused uh, to everyone, to every one of us, because this is all done in our name.
Yeah.
What happened to the Statue of Liberty? Oh my God, yes. So it is hideous, and we are betraying our own deepest and oldest values.
We're seeing our shadow.
Yes. And actually, if we really see and really deal with the shadow, that will end up being a good thing
A
finally.
healing. Yes, it will. It will. Okay, so Cynthia asked, by the way, why did Poseidon give Odysseus such a hard time?
Oh, yeah, because Odysseus blinded Cyclops, and Cyclops was Poseidon's son.
Mhm. That's
so
right. Yeah.
It was,
it
it was
was
a pretty direct revenge for what you did to my family.
Uh-huh.
pretty basic.
Yeah.
Yes. However, we can think about, Cyclops was one-eyed. So
Mm.
he had a very narrow perspective. And the
Mm,
description of him in the Odyssey is that he was kind of half evolved. He was
mhm,
a primitive being who was on the way to becoming human. So we're also being shown the bestial compared to the human,
Mhm.
and the one who wants to devour versus the one who wants to protect. But Odysseus was trying to survive and get his sailors home. However, Odysseus made a terrible mistake also that brought his downfall, and that was after he had blinded Poseidon and his ship was sailing away. That's when he screamed out, Odysseus did this, Odysseus did this, never forget. And so he harmed himself and all of his crew because he fell into what the Greeks called hubris, pride.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of saying, thank you, I've gotten away safely, he bragged about it and he was pompous. And that's how Poseidon knew, and Cyclops knew that he had done it. And that's what brought the enmity.
Interesting. Well, that is a quite a story to digest in itself, and a cautionary one.
Yeah,
and
we
it
don't.
occurs to me that Poseidon representing these opposites, where some people, assuming it's all for the purpose of growth and learning, um, and development, some people learn more from being saved from the storm. Other people learn more from being devastated by the storm.
Yes.
Right. And maybe, giving Poseidon the benefit of the doubt, maybe he knows which is which and which way to go. There's another question from Sharon. In your work with veteran healing, have you discovered or perceived spiritual influences or possession beyond the archetypal forces? I work with healing with horses for creating inner sanctuary, for soul recovery and integration following trauma. I'm interested in where we can read about the Trojan women and their anti-war position.
Well, the best place to read about the Trojan women is to read the Trojan women. I highly recommend, there's a wonderful movie version of the Trojan women that's very accurate to the play. And Katharine Hepburn plays the Queen of Troy, Hecuba.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
It's incredible. It's available.
Is it called The Trojan Women?
Called The Trojan Women.
Okay, I'm going to look for that.
And it's in English, and it's extraordinary. So really, the best place, of course, is to go to the original source and read it there. So that's one matter, but there was a earlier part of her question.
Oh, was there? Okay. No.
Oh, something.
In your work with veterans healing, have you discovered or perceived spiritual influences or possession beyond the archetypal forces?
Yes. I'm not sure what you mean by beyond the archetypal forces, but certainly transpersonal forces are at work sometimes with veterans. Sometimes they, just off the top of my head, describing some combat experiences or after combat experiences. One veteran who came to Greece with me for his healing, as soon as we got to Athens, was flooded with deja vus that, I'm seeing and I'm dreaming about my past life. I believe I was a warrior in Athens in 2,000 years ago. So that's one version, is past lives coming back to people. Another version is people in combat talk about shape-shifting into animals or into spirit beings, that they become so extremely activated, enraged, emotionally intense, that they lose their human form and experience themselves as animals. And in fact, the word berserk comes from that tradition. Berserk meant, it comes from the Vikings, the Norse warriors, berserk means a bearskin shirt in Old Norse.
A bear skin?
bearskin shirt. The fiercest warriors used to dress in bear skins or in wolf skins and work to shapeshift into a bear or a wolf in combat. And they were the fiercest, most undefeatable warriors. So the answer is a very strong yes. There are the transpersonal forces beyond the human, some in nature, some in our archetypal dimensions, some in the unconscious, that can break through in combat, sometimes spontaneously, and sometimes ritually, people seek them. So it's a strong yes. And sometimes that's how people uh, who have been in combat discover there's even a spiritual dimension to life. I've worked with combat veterans who said, I didn't believe there was any such thing as a soul until I felt my soul leaving my body in the middle of a horrible firefight. Then I knew it was real. And ever since then, I've been trying to catch up to it and bring it back into my body. So that doesn't
Yeah, and I think
but it's the answer is a very strong yes.
yeah, I think there's also another element that Sharon might be referring to, which is spirit influence in combat and other times, you know, in addiction, in where well, it's a
yeah. I'm talking about possession. I'm talking about possession or non-human influences, interdimensional.
right.
I work a lot with the archetypical, and I'm deeply rooted with Jung and unconscious and that. But I'm talking about at some point in the work with some people, there's been influences that don't seem to be archetypical. That I don't know what to call them, but it's a concern I have in working with veterans because of the kind of stress, and I really don't. I think some of the wars are so corrupt on a spiritual level that also affects their ability to heal. And I'm being asked to do some mentoring to some vet programs working with horses, and I'm conflicted about it, to be honest. Because some of these, anyway. So I was just curious, and I very much appreciate your book, War and the Soul. It was very helpful in my own healing, and I appreciate your work and your writings, and I look forward to reading the dream book. I didn't know about that, but anyway.
Yeah, the practice of dream healing, isn't that the name of it? The practice of dream healing.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful. And two books on war, on veterans and healing veterans, Vietnam veterans and others.
Thank you for working with our warriors, and I'm glad that my work found resonance and meaning with you.
Yeah.
And
no, yes, I was saying I'm afraid to work with warriors. I'm afraid to work with veterans, even though I'm being called into helping mentor some people that are working with horses and veterans, because there's a lot of reported anecdotal healing going on with them, with horses. But in my own personal life, I've been afraid because of these other dimensional spiritual energies that I've been, I guess, informed. I'll use that word. Are complicating the healing of veterans, especially because of the nature of the last few wars. There's something on a spiritual level that I think is beyond archetypical that's influencing what's happening to step into this. Yeah,
you're asking very, very deep and important questions that I'm glad you're asking them and you know them, because too many people want to be helpful to veterans and they don't know what they're getting involved with.
Exactly.
And
better to be very careful and make sure you're prepared for what you're going to encounter. Also, regarding something beyond the archetypal, we didn't use the word yet, but I'm going to say it. There's evil going on.
Yeah,
There's really
exactly.
evil going on. And, uh, you know, philosophers and spiritual teachers, some say evil is built into the universe as an independent force, and some say no, it comes from our extremely distorted human condition. We don't know which one it is, but it is a huge, monstrously huge power. And
Um,
we are doing more evil than in the past. And I have
Yeah.
seen, not universally, but as I'm working with younger veterans now, I am seeing more of the evil manifesting in the recent wars. The more
Exactly.
morally, the more morally unjust and ambiguous and unjustifiable a war becomes, the more evil comes out, the more atrocious it is, because we don't have a moral code to hold it on,
Yes.
hold it in.
Yes.
There was supposed to be, the Geneva Convention was supposed to be a code for practicing humane warfare. And
Yeah.
the Bible, I mean,
sounds like an
I can think of
oxymoron.
it, but look up Deuteronomy. I forget which
Yeah.
chapter. There's a chapter in Deuteronomy that gives the rules for humane warfare and the things we must never do, even in war, in order to protect our humanness. And we break all of those rules. Never pollute
Yes.
another country's water supply. Never destroy their orchards and their fruit trees. Don't harm the people. I in my this I just back from my last trip to Greece. The last conversation I had leaving Greece was with a Greek veteran who said, we were talking about contemporary politics, and he said, we don't practice war anymore. What we're doing is murder, it's slaughter. War used to be two people on a battlefield who were pretty much equal, who were testing their strength against each other. And as soon as we get away from that direct encounter only with warriors, between warriors, we're not practicing war anymore. We're just murdering.
Yeah. There's something else that I would like to bring up in this discussion, which is we were talking earlier about spirit guidance, the muses. Well, there is an opposite to that, which is spirit obsession. That's the word that the spiritist community uses, not possession, but obsession, which is different because what Spiritism teaches is that a spirit cannot occupy someone's body, but they can control it if they're inclined to, so there are certain energies that attract negative spirits who want to experience war or whatever the thing is, addiction, whatever it is, vicariously through people because they no longer have a body, but they're still interested in perpetuating these things. And so they will be attracted to someone who is mentally unstable for whatever reason, and they can do harm. But there are techniques and programs that are designed to help with that. And if you're interested, I can tell you about it privately. I don't want to go into it now because we're out of time. But get in touch with me and we can talk about it. Okay, it's one of the things that the Spiritist movement in Brazil is incredibly good at. And so, yeah. Okay, anybody else have a question or a comment? Go ahead, Lisa.
I want to second what Cynthia just said. It's been very, very rich. Thank you so much. I want to, as a follow-up to this, what came out Dr. Tick, from your email, from your assistant,
Mhm.
is the March pilgrimage
Yes.
2020. And I wrote back a couple days ago asking what are next steps for that
Oh,
of applying. So I now in person, I would just love to ask you because I can't stop thinking about how much I need to go on that if there's still space.
there's still space. I only take a small group, and I do have a couple of seats left. So I'd be happy to talk with you about it. Uh, I haven't heard from my assistant yet to get your information, so let's do it directly. I can give you my email address now.
I have your email because I've been in touch with you earlier in 2025. I'm the person who found, I don't know if you remember, I found my father after 50 years who was a
Oh,
Vietnam.
yes, I remember. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Tears to my eyes. It's
I
so
know.
good to meet you.
Yeah, it's been a very, very sad year though. If you can hold joy and sadness in the same moment, it's crazy. It's been a really hard year.
I hear you. And yes, we can actually holding joy and sadness in the same moment is more realistically who and what we are.
Yeah.
And the Greek tradition teaches us too, with light and shadow of every one of the deities. Everything human is ambivalent. Everything. We're not perfect, and we can't be perfect. We can strive for goodness and excellence, but we can never be perfect, and we're always going to have the dark and the light.
Yeah.
And, even now with climate change, it's a beautiful day outside. It's hot and sunny, but it's December. It shouldn't be. I know something's wrong, and I'm grieving it, and I'm also allowed to enjoy the day because we've been given a beautiful day. Hold them both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always present. Yeah.
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 So,
Yes.
shall we be in touch to talk about March?
I'll send you an email just to make a dog ear.
Yeah, good. And do it soon because March isn't far away.
No, I'll do it right after the seminar here.
Terrific. So
Yeah.
we'll be in touch in the next couple of days to
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, we're out of time, unfortunately, but thank you. I can't wait to see your next book, Ed, and
Look forward to that. Thank you very much.
thanks for coming, and thank you all for attending.
It's a
Thank
joy
you.
to be with you, Gloria, and thanks to everybody for attending tonight in such a rich evening.
Thank you. Bye.